Right, just gonna have that on the screen while I share this link out. Please do the same if you can.
Made his point. Pulled stake and started on and whapped him across the neck with it. Then he picked up a pulled stake and started beating everybody up.
He made his point.
And he made his point.
George White was not a man of understatement or subtleties. His boss at OSS, Stanley Lovell, referred to him as deadly and dedicated. In this note from White's diaries, it says, "Call Lovell regarding TD." TD was a rather transparent cover for Truth Drug. George White worked with the Truth Drug Committee here at St. Elizabeth's Hospital in the nation's capital. They experimented with mescaline, scopolamine, and marijuana on unwitting victims. The committee soon learned there was no easy panacea, no truth drug at this stage. But White and later colleagues would not stop trying. The goal remained the same. As this 1952 CIA memo says, the aim is controlling an individual to the point where he will do our bidding against his will, and even against such fundamental laws of nature as self-preservation.
Greetings and welcome to CRWS study on Program to Kill, The Politics of Serial Murder by David McGowan. We are beginning with the introduction right now.
Introduction. Mind Control 101. T. He experimenters will be particularly interested in dissociative states, from the abasement de niveau mental to multiple personality in so-called mediums, and an attempt will be made to induce a number of states of this kind, using hypnosis. From a declassified MKUltra-1 document. It is probably safe to say that this is not your typical true crime book. It is, instead, a journey into an even darker, more disturbing world, one that exists in the shadows of the world depicted in the hundreds of formulaic serial killer biographies that line the shelves of America's bookstores. For many readers, much of the information contained within these pages will be unfamiliar, and some of the theories and ideas that are discussed may seem rather bizarre. Perhaps the most controversial theory that readers will find themselves confronted with concerns a phenomenon commonly referred to as mind control. Although the concept of mind control has long been a staple of that polluted wellspring of information known as the conspiracy theory literature, where it often mingles freely with outlandish tales of reptilian aliens and paranormal activity, it has never been a polite topic of discussion in mainstream culture. The only exposure that most people have had to the idea of mind control is through the often metaphorical, and frequently absurd, images that Hollywood has provided in a decades-long string of films, from the Manchurian Candidate and the Stepford Wives in the 1960s and 1970s, to such recent offerings as Conspiracy Theory and Zoolander, along with the remakes of both the Manchurian Candidate and the Stepford Wives. The term MKUltra, while actually just one of many codenames used over the years by the US intelligence community, is commonly used to refer to all CIA-sponsored research on mind control. 11. 12. Programmed to kill. Most people are naturally quite skeptical of the notion that someone's thoughts and actions can be controlled by unseen actors. Particularly in Western culture, where the idea of free will is firmly indoctrinated. Theories of mind control are inimical to the omnipresent mantra that we are all responsible for our own actions. It is quite likely then that scenarios involving mind-controlled killers, whether assassins like Lee Harvey Oswald or Sirhan, or serial killers like Henry Lee Lucas or Charles Manson, will be summarily dismissed by many readers. Skeptics though should bear in mind that, contrary to perceptions, mind control is not a fictional creation of novelists and Hollywood screenwriters. To the contrary, there exists a substantial paper trail establishing that the US intelligence community has devoted a vast amount of both human and financial resources, over a period of several decades, to the study of mind control. Along the way, luminaries of numerous social sciences have been recruited and co-opted. Detailing all the techniques and procedures that have received attention from the Central Intelligence Agency and its brethren is, unfortunately, well beyond the scope of this book. It is possible, however, to provide a rough sketch of what mind control really is, a sketch that will, it is hoped, help to demystify a phenomenon that is not, as it turns out, nearly so esoteric as it may at first appear to be. The basic methodology of mind control was revealed many decades ago by George Estabrooks, a prominent psychologist hypnotist who worked under contract to American intelligence agencies. In his book Hypnotism, first published in 1943, Estabrooks teased his audience by noting that the intelligent reader will sense that much more is withheld than has been told. While that was undoubtedly an accurate assessment, Estabrooks nevertheless did reveal enough to allow an informed reader to construct a reasonably accurate picture of the fundamentals of mind control. The degree to which any given person is susceptible to being mind controlled is a direct function of that person's susceptibility to what are known as dissociative states. According to the psychiatric community, dissociative states, or dissociative. All of the following books focus directly or indirectly on CIA-sponsored mind control research. Jose M.R. Delgado, Physical Control of the Mind, Harper and Row, 1969. Donald Bain, The Control of Candy Jones. Playboy Press, 1976. Walter Boat, Operation Mind Control. Dell Publishing, 1978. Peter Watson, War on the Mind, Hutchinson, 1978. Peter Scragg, Mind Control. Pantheon, 1978. John Marks, The Search for the Manchurian Candidate. Times Books, 1979. Martin Lee and Bruce Sklain, Acid Dreams. Grove Press, 1985. And Gordon Thomas, Journey into Madness. Bantam, 1989. All of these titles contain pieces of the puzzle, but all contain varying amounts of disinformation as well, as do more recent titles. David McGowan, 13. Disorders include amnesia, fugue state, and what used to be called multiple personality disorder (MPD), but is now generally referred to as dissociative identity disorder (DID). All of these terms describe the same basic phenomenon. A person who is seemingly in control of his or her actions over a given time period is unable, at a later date, to recall or account for those actions. As with any category of mental illness, there is no dividing line that separates those who are diagnosed with dissociative disorders from those who are normal. Virtually everyone possesses the ability to experience dissociative states. Many people, for example, are familiar with the phenomenon sometimes referred to as driving on autopilot. The scenario generally plays out as follows. You suddenly snap out of it just as you are pulling into your parking space at work, and you realize, to your horror, that you can't remember anything since leaving your house. If this has happened to you, then you have experienced being in a dissociative state. In essence, you drove to work while in a fugue state, and you later had amnesia. In a similar vein, it could be said that an alter personality, which you have no conscious awareness of, drove you to work. In any event, it is clear that someone piloted your car to work in a safe and reasonable manner, and it was someone other than you. Many people are also familiar with another common example of a dissociative state. You are deep in thought, oblivious to everything around you, possibly working on the solution to one of the world's great mysteries, when suddenly your silent meditation is interrupted, perhaps by an unexpected noise, or by someone calling your name or tapping your shoulder. As you snap out of it, you suddenly realize, much to your dismay, that you cannot remember what it was that you were so deep in thought about just moments before. If you have ever had a similar experience, or if you are familiar with the dreamlike state that some people attain just before falling asleep, or while engrossed in a book or television program, then you have experienced being in a dissociative state of consciousness. While the ability to dissociate is likely universal, or nearly so, some people are clearly more susceptible to dissociative states than are others. There is little question that someone's innate ability to dissociate can be greatly enhanced, although not necessarily by ethical means. The most severe of the dissociative disorders, MPD, is in almost all cases created by psychological trauma so severe that the traumatic episode cannot be integrated into the experiences of the core personality. By far the most common cause of MPD is early childhood trauma, usually, but not always, resulting from horrific abuse by a parent or other adult guardian. Dr. Frank Putnam noted in 1989 that he was struck by the quality of extreme sadism that is reported by most MPD victims. Many multiples have told me of being sexually abused by groups of people, of being forced into prostitution by family members, or of being offered as sexual enticement to their 14. Programmed to kill mother's boyfriends. After one has worked with a number of MPD patients, it becomes obvious that severe, sustained, and repetitive child abuse is a major element in the creation of MPD. Dr. Deirdre Barrett, writing in 2001 for Psychology Today, offered a similar observation. Dissociators have the following traits in common. Many such subjects reported a history of child abuse. Although some remembered this directly, some had been told by others that they had been battered. Other dissociators who had not been abused had suffered childhood traumas such as prolonged, painful medical conditions and before the age of 10 experienced the deaths of their parents. As mental health professionals have long recognized, the normal human reaction to highly stressful situations is what is known as the fight or flight response. Children, however, typically lack the ability to either fight off or flee from their attackers and abusers. This is particularly true, of course, for very young children. The human brain, that wonderfully resilient organ, therefore reacts in the best way that it can under the circumstances. It allows the child to mentally flee from the situation. When the abuse is of an extreme and sustained nature, the brain's response is to build a virtual wall around the traumatic experiences by creating a separate and distinct alter personality to deal with current and future episodes of abuse. Although MPD is a disorder listed in the DSM-IV, the veritable Bible of the psychiatric community, the public generally looks upon the notion of multi-play personality with a healthy dose of skepticism, a skepticism encouraged by a news and entertainment media apparatus that generally mocks and ridicules the condition, and by a not insignificant number of psychologists and psychiatrists who deny the existence of MPD. Strangely enough, many of the most visible and vocal members of the denial crowd tend to be psychologists and psychiatrists who have received funding from the CIA. In November 2001, researchers in Melbourne, Australia conducted what the Herald Sun described as a world-first study of multiple personality disorder. The goal of the study was to help resolve the dispute within the mental health community. The conclusion reached by the researchers, at least one of whom had been skeptical of the disorder before working on the project, was that individuals who suffer multiple personality disorder are not faking their alter egos. The study involved comparing the brainwave patterns of people claiming to be suffering from the disorder with the brainwave patterns of actors portraying the condition. While the actors gave outwardly convincing performances, the researchers found that there were distinct changes in the brain of sufferers as they switched personalities, while those changes were not detected in the brains of those who were just acting the part. David McGowan, 15. So how does all of this relate to the concept of mind control? In the simplest possible terms, what the term mind control refers to is the process of first enhancing an unwitting subject's natural ability to dissociate, creating, in essence, the condition of multiple personality disorder, and then controlling that subject's dissociative states, by creating one or more alter personalities that are effectively under the control of others, and that are unknown to the core personality. But can this really be done? Is mind control a real phenomenon, or merely the product of the fertile imaginations of various conspiracy theorists and self-described survivors? The answer to that question lies in the answers to several other questions, beginning with, do dissociative states occur naturally in the human species? As anyone who has ever driven their car to work on autopilot, or been caught daydreaming or spacing out, can testify, the answer is yes. Although the vast majority of people would not normally use the term dissociative state to describe the experience. Can the naturally occurring ability to dissociate be enhanced? The answer here also appears to be yes, albeit with the caveat that enhancing that ability generally requires the infliction of severe trauma, preferably during the vulnerable childhood years. Would the CIA and other US intelligence agencies be restrained morally or ethically from inflicting such trauma? How this question is answered depends largely upon the individual reader's political orientation and level of awareness of national and world events. Serious students of covert operations know that the CIA has a long and very sordid history of sponsoring countless assassinations, civilian massacres, violent coups, and barbaric torture interrogation centers. And that is just the short list. This bloody, and very well documented, record suggests that there is little, if anything, that the CIA will not attempt to justify in the name of national security. Documents released through FOIA requests have revealed that, at the very least, the agency has not shied away from funding and sponsoring studies in which very young children have been dosed with LSD continuously for several weeks. If we accept that dissociation is a real and naturally occurring human ability, and that the tendency to dissociate can be enhanced, and that the intelligence. 3C William Blum's Killing Hope Common Courage Press, 1995, for a detailed look at some of what the intelligence community really does with your tax dollars. 16. Programmed to kill. Communities' hands are not tied by ethical concerns. Then the final, and most critical, question becomes, can enhanced dissociative states, once created, be controlled? George Estabrooks was clearly convinced that that was indeed the case. He claimed that once a person's core personality had been split, it was then possible to control one or more of the alter personalities, without the conscious awareness of the primary personality. This process, according to Estabrooks, allowed the intelligence community to create super spies, unwitting agents who were willing to follow any orders unquestioningly. Among other duties, these super spies made ideal couriers, since they could be fed sensitive information while in a controlled dissociative state and thereafter have no conscious awareness that they were transporting important data. Even under torture, the super spy would reveal nothing, for as far as he, or she, was aware, there was nothing to reveal. Someone at the receiving end who was familiar with the super spy's programming, however, could readily extract the information, after which the super spy would remain blissfully unaware that a mission had been successfully completed. As dubious as Estabrooks' scenario may at first appear to be, it is not so very different from the common phenomenon of driving on autopilot. Let us imagine that you have managed, once again, to find yourself at work with no idea how you got there. You can remember nothing beyond pulling out of your driveway. So you decide, out of curiosity, to pay a visit to a skilled hypnotist, for who succeeds in putting you under, so to speak. While in the hypnotic trance, another term for a dissociative state, you would be able to relate to the hypnotist, and anyone else in the room, all the mundane details of your drive to work. Once brought back to a normal state of consciousness, however, you would still have no conscious memory of your drive to work unless instructed otherwise by the hypnotist. You would. For hypnotism is another phenomenon that is regarded with considerable skepticism by both the general public and the scientific community, although there are signs that that is beginning to change. Despite its long history, scientists have wondered whether hypnotism is a genuine psychological state or a gimmick, noted the National Post, but recent research shows it causes measurable changes in the brain. A number of mainstream media articles in recent years have begun to acknowledge the effectiveness of hypnosis, especially as a means of pain control. Lamé's childbirth techniques, for example, are really just a form of self-hypnosis. Psychology Today noted that hypnosis is not an all-or-nothing phenomenon, but rather a continuum. Most people can be hypnotized to some degree. The only question is how far. The same can be said, of course, of the ability to dissociate, which largely determines susceptibility to hypnotism. David McGowan, 17, have served, in essence, as a super spy. All that is missing from the equation is the element of control. And how would that control be attained? Estabrooks shied away from the details, only alluding to the severe psychic torture that is required to split a person's core personality and then exert control over the alter personalities that are created. The trauma is often referred to euphemistically as a form of hypnotism. In one passage, for example, Estabrooks noted that multiple personalities are caused by a form of hypnotism in the first place. We will see that emotional shock produces exactly the same results as hypnotism. Later, he came a little closer to the truth. Multiple personality can be both caused and cured by hypnotism. Remember that war is a grim business. Suppose we deliberately set up that condition of multiple personality to further the ends of military intelligence. Still later, he came even closer. Everyone can be thrown into the deepest state of hypnotism by the use of what I termed the Russian method, no holds barred, deliberate disintegration of the personality by psychic torture. The subject might easily be left a mental wreck, but war is a grim business. War is indeed a grim business, as Estabrooks was apparently fond of stating, but that argument hardly justified the type of research the doctor endorsed, including using children, who are notoriously easy to hypnotize, as research subjects. Decades after the publication of Estabrooks' seminal work, another psychiatrist hypnotist, by the name of Paul Verdier, wrote an obscure book entitled Brainwashing and the Cults, an expose on capturing the human mind. Verdier's manuscript began on a promising note. With this acknowledgement, it must be accepted that brainwashing is now being used here, in the United States, by devious persons with personal gain in mind. Unfortunately, the author followed that bold proclamation with a woefully inaccurate accounting of who those devious persons might be. He did though provide a reasonably good description of the process of mind control, although Verdier, like Estabrooks, did not use the term mind control. By Verdier's account, the objective of the would-be brainwasher is to access those areas of the brain that are outside of the individual's conscious control. This is accomplished, the doctor explained, by circumventing the normal inhibiting response of the cerebral cortex, so that an individual's voluntary conscious self-control will be bypassed or short-circuited. In order to disable what Verdier referred to as the brain's cortical block, all of the following were recommended: alcohol, euphoric drugs, isolation, solitary confinement, and the most dramatic and unique item in the brainwashing arsenal, hypnosis. All of these brainwashing techniques, significantly, have been exhaustively researched by the CIA. 18. Program to kill. Verdier went on to explain that in order to achieve truly lasting states of brainwashing, or mind control, it is necessary to subject the victim to profound and deep emotional states. The recommended emotional states are fear, shock, and anxiety, all of which have an intense disinhibitive effect on the human brain. Even more effective is pain, because, according to the eminent neurologist, Dr. Wilder Penfield, 5 sensations of pain from the muscular sensory system enter the subcortical brain regions directly. With a passage seemingly lifted from Estabrooks' writings, Verdier left no doubt that pain and fear are the most useful items in the MK Ultra toolbox. Russian political scientists do support the belief that given enough punishment, all the people in any time or place are susceptible to hypnotic control. 6. Verdier echoed other of Estabrooks' beliefs as well, including the idea that brainwashing could and should be widely utilized for benevolent purposes. 7. And the notion that children are ideal candidates for mind control programming. Brainwashing can be slow, insidious and sure when applied to children early in life. It is likely that there is a short period of time following corporal punishment when the child is in a state of decortication, hypnosis, so to speak. This is the ideal time to plant the positive instructions for better behavior in the future. What the good doctor considered corporal punishment and positive instructions was left to the reader's imagination. The vulnerability of children to dissociative states brought on by traumatic abuse is one of the reasons that the CIA and other intelligence agencies have played key roles in the creation of relatively mainstream satanic groups, as well as in denying the existence of underground satanic cults engaged in violent criminal enterprises. Some of the available evidence suggests that an array of satanic groups have served as intelligence agency fronts for mind control operations, which actually makes perfect sense, considering that if the goal is to severely traumatize. 5. Dr. Penfield was an associate of the notorious medical torture practitioner and MK Ultra operative, Dr. David Ewan Cameron. 6. This is a very common form of disinformation that is found frequently in the writings of CIA-affiliated writers. Acknowledge that mind control is a real phenomenon, but then blame it all on those godless communists. Other agency-penned manuscripts deny that mind control exists at all, which is another common form of disinformation. 7. The final chapter of Verdeer's book, entitled Benevolent Brainwashing in the Future, contains the following recommendation. The process of brainwashing could be used effectively and economically to solve many of society's pressing human problems which, until now, have seemed virtually unsolvable. David McGowan, 19. Children. Then surely nothing compares to the seemingly outlandish stories told by those who have survived what has been dubbed satanic ritual abuse, SRA. Verdeer took note in his book of the fact that one of the most pronounced emotional experiences that a human being can undergo is having his or her life threatened. Threats of death are used as a basic tool by brainwashing communists. Even among them, however, this threat is used sparingly, for they know that humans quickly adapt to this type of threat, especially if it is repeatedly given but never carried out. In order to avoid this routinization of stressful emotional situations, they have been known to casually execute prisoners for the apparent effect it has on others. The actions that Verdeer predictably attributed to brainwashing communists precisely mirror the stories that have been told repeatedly by self-described survivors of ritual abuse. These victims speak of receiving frequent death threats, directed against both themselves and their family members. They speak also of having those threats reinforced through their forced witnessing of, and even participate in, the killing of others. There has been a tremendous amount of energy expended to discredit all such stories. At the forefront of the movement to deny the validity of the stories told by countless survivors is the False Memory Syndrome Foundation, a group led by a truly vile coalition of CIA-funded psychiatrists and accused, and in some cases, convicted, pedophiles. Also playing a key role in the movement are Paul and Shirley Eberl, the authors of a purportedly authoritative book entitled The Politics of Child Abuse. The Eberl's book attempts to lay the blame for virtually all child abuse accusations and prosecutions on overzealous prosecutors, therapists and parents. That argument might be a little more credible, however, if the Eberls themselves were not known to Los Angeles police as distributors of child pornography, a fact that media outlets conveniently and rather consistently ignore while touting the Eberls as authorities in the field of child abuse. Contrary to conventional wisdom, claims of ritual abuse are certainly not a modern phenomenon. Such claims have actually been around for quite some time, and they were given legitimacy by no less an historical figure than Sigmund Freud. Over 100 years ago, Freud recognized that ritual abuse was likely the primary cause of the psychological problems that he observed in his female patients. Author Kevin Marin noted that Freud had commented on the marked similarity between what his patients told him and the accounts of the witchcraft confessions of the 16th century. In a letter to a colleague, written in January 1897, Freud pondered, but why did the devil who took possession of the poor things invariably abuse them sexually and in a loathsome manner? Why are their confessions under torture so like the communications made by my patients in psychological treatment? If Freud were alive today, he might well add, and why are the XX, programmed to kill communications made by my patients a century ago so like the stories told to therapists today by survivors of SRA? Should this remarkable consistency spanning several centuries be attributed to some kind of recurring mass hysteria? Or can it best be explained by the fact that, as historians, and the Chicago Tribune, have noted, satanic cults have been documented in Europe and America as far back as the 1600s? Has there always been something dark and evil lurking in the shadows, only occasionally raising its head, at which times its existence is denied, its perpetrators cast as victims, and its real victims mocked and ridiculed? To ponder such a question, alas, requires calling into question some of our most fundamental beliefs about the nature of the world we live in, and that is a decidedly unsettling venture. Perhaps when viewed in the context of a covert, state-sponsored mind control program, some readers can begin to understand not only why there might be those who are motivated to inflict appalling levels of abuse on some of America's children, but also why so much effort would be expended attempting to discredit claims of horrific abuse if the claims are in fact valid. Truth be told, the stories told by survivors of ritual abuse tend to be self-discrediting. One of the potential benefits, therefore, of cloaking mind control activity in satanic rituals is that the operations are largely immune to disclosure. Even if an operation is uncovered, the stories told by the children tend to be so outlandish, so far removed from the world that we know, that the claims are easily cast aside as the product of a child's fertile imagination. In May 2000, however, a report commissioned by the United Kingdom's Department of Health concluded that satanic ritual abuse was not, as an earlier report ordered by the Conservative government found in 1994, a myth. The Independent noted, in anticipation of the report's release, that a specially commissioned government report will this week conclude that satanic abuse does take place in Britain. It will say that its victims have suffered actual abuse and are not suffering from false memory syndrome. 8. One of the primary authors of the controversial report was therapist Valerie Sinison, who reportedly had personally treated 126 survivors of ritualized abuse. According to a report in The Guardian, Sinison has said 46 of her patients claimed to have witnessed murder of children or adults during ritual abuse ceremonies that had involved up to 300 people at a time. Some 70% of the reported. 8. The timing of the report on this landmark study was rather curious. The Independent published the story on the 30th of April, 2000, otherwise known as Walpurgisnacht, Night of the Witches, or Beltane. Along with the summer and winter solstices, Walpurgisnacht is among the most significant of the occult holidays. David McGowan, 21. Abuse was carried out by pedophiles and the rest by Satanists. The Independent added that 16 of the victims had also claimed they had seen induced abortions or babies killed. Sinison's research has led her to conclude that some children are born for the purpose of abuse and are not registered on birth certificates. That claim has been voiced repeatedly by US victims as well. In a report from February 2000, The Independent revealed that Sinison had photographs documenting horrific injuries to children and the existence of ceremonial sites with the remains of mutilated animals. The same article noted that Scotland Yard had begun an investigation. It is unclear where that investigation led, as it is unclear what the official response was to the release of Sinison's study. Media outlets appear to have dropped the story just before the report was issued. Many readers of the press accounts that preceded the report's release were no doubt predisposed to dismiss Sinison and her fellow researchers as cranks. Where exactly, readers were left to ponder, was this alleged photographic evidence showing children with horrific injuries? And where is the evidence of ritual murders being performed? As it turns out, shockingly enough, such evidence is not that difficult to find. As hard as it may be to believe, especially for readers conditioned to think that all such stories are nothing but urban myths, photographic evidence of exactly the sort described by Sinison is being peddled all over the internet. But even with such compelling evidence being widely circulated, many will still be tempted to discount the stories told by the survivors of such abuse. Skeptics are advised to keep in mind the words of Detective Robert Simandl of the Chicago Police Department. It's difficult for us to believe such crimes are occurring, but they are, all over the United States. Indeed, all over the world, as we shall see in the next chapter. In the early 1950s, the CIA was looking for specially gifted subjects to study dissociative states, which could be induced and controlled to some extent with hypnosis and drugs. Arlene Tyner, writing in Probe magazine, July-August 2000. Part I. The Pedophocracy.
All right, that was the introduction of Program to Kill by David McGowan. Very interesting and I would also say fascinating stuff. And just tying that all the information that I have learned about the system. The very beginning video that we watched with just a tiny bit of it from the documentary Mission Mind Control. It was talking the person George Whitley or something like that. I may be in error about his name, but he worked for the OSS, and that was the precursor to the CIA, and they were also trying to develop some sort of mind control, will control, and that is very interesting how CIA and various, according to David McGowan, agencies have invested a lot of time and energy into this concept of mind control that a lot of people would say is hey, it's not actually happening. Mind control, you can't really control a person's mind. It's impossible, and that combined with all the propaganda that they put out there, which is really them telling on themselves, I suspect. Especially when we have propaganda that depicts child abuse. I'm thinking of True Detective season 1, but also how we have just mind control being presented, kind of loony. I'm thinking more of the 12 Monkeys. But getting to the text, the very first, let me see. So we have here on page 11 on the introduction. I just have to point out some just racist mind control, I would say. And also just David McGowan, he is probably not a racist anymore because he is dead, but I suspect he may have been a racist when he was on this planet. But he says here, it is probably safe to say that this is not your typical true crime book. It is instead a journey into an even darker, more disturbing world, one that exists in the shadows of the world depicted in the hundreds of formulaic serial killer biographies that line the shelves of America's bookstores. So, it's just we have that, racist cliche trope of using darkness to describe, things that to describe incorrect things that white people are doing, white people who may be racist. In fact, in the shadows, a lot of this is occurring in plain sight, as we're going to learn about more very notorious pedophiles and serial killers. All this stuff happens in plain sight. It's not in the shadows or in darkness. So we just have to understand that that's the form of mind control, the way we've been taught to think that everything incorrect is dark. Everything light is bright, so that's the form of mind control. And that's also a excellent segue to just play this clip here to show just to get people thinking about mind control and more than just the way that David McGowan has introduced us to it, because mind control is something that we should do some thinking about. So let me get the clip up here. All right.
Let's go to
strange. It's correct to say that system of Mr. Lee Fuller, it's the system of white supremacy. Is it correct to say that it has trained the way that non-white people think, speech, and behave? Is that a form of mind control?
Yes. You can't control people without controlling their minds. So the white supremacists make sure that everything that black people do, for example, is something that the white supremacists approve of, to keep black people weak. For instance, for example, just one example, when black people were plantation slaves, were still slaves, we were just transferred, no such thing as slaves being liberated in the system of white supremacy or emancipated. We were just transferred, scattered all over the place. That's all. Taken off of the plantation. Just walking off the plantation didn't say that you're not still a slave. You're a slave to the system of white supremacy. I don't care where you go or what your job is. All slaves have always had different jobs, different types of jobs, whatever the white supremacists wanted. So, in order to control people, in answer to the question, you have to control their minds. So in every area of activity, the white supremacists said, we're going to see to it that when it comes to economics, what black people think, how they think about money, how they think about time, how they think about energy, how they think about everything associated with economics. What is economics? Economics is how you use time and energy, and that would include money, okay? And that would include material things, but basically how you use your time and energy. So the white supremacists said, we will control how black people use their time and their energy. And when it comes to education, we will control what they know and what they don't know, and what they understand and what they don't understand. We will control all of that worldwide. And when it comes to entertainment, we will decide what type of entertainment we will pay all that big money for, and make sure that it's something that's absolutely stupid, and we'll tear them down, not build them up, not make them stronger, but make them weaker in their entertainment. Black people love being entertained, and they love being entertainers. But we will control all of that in the way that they think about entertainment, and make sure that it's what? Non-constructive. We'll maybe let a few things slip by that have some constructive value, but won't be of any damage to the system of white supremacy. But we'll make sure that the book of what black people do to entertain themselves will be very, very destructive to black people, okay? Their entertainment, the way they entertain, black people love entertainment. So we'll see to it we control it and make sure that it's non-constructive, that it's not going to build them up in any meaningful way, not produce constructive results. And then labor, well, sure, we will decide what kind of work they'll do. They're not going to decide that worldwide. Law, we will decide what law is and what justice is in all of our courts. And no matter how many robes we put on them and say that they are judges and all like that, we will decide what the law is going to be and how it will be enforced. That's what white supremacy means. And then you go to the sixth area of activity, politics. We will decide what kind of titles they will have and how many. I mean, you know, we'll even let them walk around and be kings and queens. I mean, that's all right. They love titles. We'll dump titles on them like you wouldn't believe. judges, kings, queens, school deans, college presidents. Oh, yeah. And they'll just, oh, yeah, pour it on them, but give them absolutely no power to do nothing.
Okay.
But they'll have 15 titles. Give 15 titles to one Negro, and he'll go crazy.
Okay.
That's mind control.
So what I'm learning from this text and combining it with counter-racist logic is that there's degrees to mind control, varying degrees to mind control, and the racists seem to wanting to be refining mind control, and they want to be and they want to use it in a more direct manner. Is what I got from this the introduction here. So that was very interesting. But continuing. Oh, and I have to read this again. Well, not again, but Daniel the AI read it. But I think the way that this these topics that we're discussing here, child abuse, mind control, the so-called occult, which just means the hidden, just like the system of white supremacy, the system of racism in general, it has been made a taboo topic. You know, you're really not supposed to talk about these things, and when it gets brought up, it's just there's so many terms that can be thrown at it that to make one discouraged to want to discuss these things, like conspiracy theorists, or just sensitive about race, stuff like that. And I think that just goes to show how powerful the system is. He mentions that the racists have turned out a ton of propaganda that does show a little bit about mind control, but he mentions that he quotes it as frequently absurd images that Hollywood has provided in a decade long string of films, from the Manchurian Candidate and the Stepford Wives in the 1960s and 70s to such recent offerings as Conspiracy Theory and Zoolander. So, and he also has a ton of footnotes, which are very constructive. The first one here on page 11 on the introduction, it's MK Ultra, and most people probably are familiar with this term because the racists have allowed a lot of information to come out surrounding MK Ultra. I actually wrote a short story based on this CIA operation. But anyways, it reads here: the term MK Ultra, while actually just one of many code names used over the years by the U.S. intelligence community, is commonly referred to as all CIA-sponsored research on mind control. And this reminds me. Go to my notes. All right. So from page 12 on the introduction, I'm gonna read and then share some of my notes. We have here: most people are naturally quite skeptical of the notion that someone's thoughts and actions can be controlled by unseen actors, particularly in Western culture, where the idea of free will is firmly indoctrinated. Theories of mind control are inimical to omnipresent mantra that we all are responsible for our own actions. It is quite likely then that scenarios involving mind control killers, whether assassins like Lee Harvey Oswald or Sirhan Sohan, or serial killers like Henry Lee Lucas or Charles Manson will be summarily dismissed by many readers. Skeptics, though, should bear in mind that contrary to perceptions, mind control is not a fictional creation of novelists and Hollywood screenwriters. To the contrary, there exists a substantial paper trail establishing that the U.S. intelligence community has devoted vast amount of both human and financial resources over a period of several decades to the study of mind control. So I think this is really interesting and reminds me of the reality that the racists have convinced non-white people worldwide that they have this that we have this free will, this so-called will to do what we want. When I suspect and I believe and I think we're under the will of the system of white supremacy, and at best we're not using our free will to do what we want, but we're at best just reacting to the system in whatever manner that we can. So very tragic and terroristic, that and very deceptive. And perhaps another example of the real mind control that has been taking place here, that we have been convinced that we are free people. A lot of us sometimes think we're free Americans, but I don't think that's the case. I think that we have been taught incorrectly, and our minds have been subverted. And I'll pause there to see if folks would like to share.
Can I be heard? Can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I haven't read this text all the way through. I started a couple of years back, but going back and listening to it, I guess you could say in the context of white supremacy, it's really it's very powerful in its methodology of what they call mind control. I just call it the subversive use of racism, but it's kind of one of the same. The way that the author describes how trauma causes this dissociative mind state, or what they call in psychology multiple personality disorder, and how Mr. Fuller spoke of, yeah, we let you off the plantation, but you're still a slave. How so many people say that you're mentally a slave. Well, this text here puts the scientific method behind those terms or phrases, or cliches, whatever you want to call them. We can substitute the various terms that they use for Black people in the categories of torture, abuse, seeing abuse, how it can cause a break in the psyche. And once some people call it being opened, so that you're susceptible to messages that can be put in front of you, and then you can be controlled. The various ways that racist white supremacists have manipulated non-white people worldwide for hundreds, maybe thousands of years. And then I'll put it into context with non-white Black people and how we have been put into this system of continuous abuse, whether it's physical, whether it's through imagery, whether it's through auditory senses. Some people might call it music. This nonstop barrage of violence and abuse, which causes the victim to be disassociated from reality or their purpose or their function. And to be able to present this text with that context gives a little bit of clarity on our situation as non-white classified Black victims of racism, white supremacy.
Thank you, Mr. Yawu, because that was excellently put. I have a just throughout my notes. I have this question written down. Is this what has happened to Black people, and is this what being done to Black people? And we're definitely gonna get there when we get to that page. We have here on page 12 of the introduction, detailing all the techniques and procedures that have received attention from the Central Intelligence Agency and its brethren is unfortunately well beyond the scope of this book. It is possible, however, to provide a rough sketch of what mind control really is, a sketch that will, it is hoped, help to demystify a phenomenon that is not, as it turns out, nearly so esoteric as it may at first appear to be. So I thought this was very significant because we should just be able to simplify this text and the system of white supremacy, despite how complex it may actually be. But esoteric, it's supposed to be it's supposed to mean, only a small group or a certain group of people are going to be able to understand it. But no, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to follow all the evidence that clearly says that white people have been attempting to control and come up with techniques to control people's minds, whether directly or indirectly. It has been documented, and questions that can be asked about why are white people doing that. We should ask questions. Why? We heard earlier that someone suggested that mind control could probably solve problems that white people felt unsolvable. And I should say the white people who choose to practice racism, white supremacy. Look at it. Yeah. And the CIA devoting a ton of time and energy and money over decades to the study of mind control. That shows that they're definitely dedicated to continuing their Yurugu ways of dominating and controlling the very just everything. And they don't only want to control where a person exists. They don't want to control the animals that they can exist with. They control the crops. They control pretty much everything. But now they want to and they have been a long time ago. They started probably controlling Black people's minds, non-white people's minds, but they want to control your mind as well, because the Yurugu, there's no limit to their will and their want to control and dominate the other non-white people, just nature, and I would say just the whole universe. But before I start rambling about the Yurugu, let me stay on the text. Yeah, yeah. I have a note here. I say they long ago mastered how to control our minds, and I that is very I think accurate. And they're just refining mind control. They, a long time ago they um learned how to make Black people into perfect slaves. Now they're just refining it, and they are doing that to non-white people. Um, and there's probably some white sacrifices as well. And I'm sure there are white sacrifices as well who have been puppeteered and probably mind controlled, allegedly, according to this text. But we will see. So another thing I think I should read and talk about is the basic, and this is all from page 11. The basic methodology of mind control was revealed many decades ago by George Esterbrook, a prominent psychologist, hypnotist who worked under contract to American intelligence agencies. In his book, Hypnotism, first published in 1943, Esterbrook teased his audience by noting that the intelligent reader will sense that much more is withheld than has been told. While that was undoubtedly an accurate assessment, Esterbrook nevertheless did reveal enough to allow an informed reader to construct a reasonably accurate picture of the fundamentals of mind control. The degree to which any given person is susceptible to being mind controlled is a direct function of that person's susceptibility to what are known as dissociative states. So George Esterbrook's definitely probably practicing racism by withholding information. But also, still they wanna brag, the racist man, racist woman, they want to gloat and brag about the things that they know, the information that they have been that they have, masters of knowledge. Because so in his bragging, he tells us that an intelligent reader, come on guys, you guys should know that there's way more than I'm allowed to tell you all, or that I'm willing to tell you all. And then he has here a list of books that deal in mind control in the footnotes, and two of them caught my eye that I want to check out. One of them is Donald Bain, The Control of Candy Jones. And I'm like, it just has to look to a Negro written all over it for me. Candy Jones. That's very interesting title. And the other one is Peter Watson, War on the Mind, because sounds like a very accurate title. So yeah, when you mentioned it, the dissociative states, and that's also something that we talked about in our Body Keeps the Score studies, and that was a huge component to being traumatized, going to dissociative states. And Black people are very, very terrorized and traumatized people. So it's very obvious to me that yeah, it's very easy that we would be in these dissociative states quite often, and more susceptible to mind control. And that being compared with how we've been conditioned to just sit in front of the TV, and just how we've been conditioned to just use our time and energy with entertainment. That combined with the trauma and the mistreatment and what that does to the mind. And then we have possibly really, really powerful, smart, and intelligent races who are wanting to refine their mind control skills. They have probably came up with ways to put messages in Area 3 content that, because we are so just traumatized and already in this a weak-minded state, weak-willed state, because that's what the system of white supremacy does to us, we're very susceptible to the messages that they're coding into Area 3 stuff, Area 3 content. So when we're watching the so-called Disney Channel, Nickelodeon, whatever, watching Miley Cyrus, watching all the colors and all the the rainbows popping, all the unicorns sparkles. Next thing you know, 10 years later, you don't really know who you are, but you're just your personality is aspects of these cartoon characters and white characters you've seen on TV, and it leads to a lot of confusion. And I really hope this is making sense. I really do. And it also reminds me of the film Get Out. That probably could be what Jordan Peele was hinting at a tiny bit, because the blackmail was the TV did play a role in his hypnotized treatment they were trying to do on him. But I'll pause there to see if folks like making any comments.
This introduction, what I was hearing, gathering from it reminded me of Aleister Crowley, and also the Urugu that did the experiments on the children. Alfred Kinsey. This reminded me of Alfred Kinsey and Aleister Crowley, the way that he described sexual torture that can cause dissociative episodes. It also made me think about, and you were saying, I was thinking about it while the reading was happening, how you talked about and what is known as white sacrifice. If I'm thinking about it in the context of the military and science, well, that would be my control group. So I have to, it's like how we see white mice in science. So you have to sacrifice the white mice to understand what controls all the other mice or all the other non-white people. We'll tell you, oh yeah, we had a fight with our buddies and we killed 20,000. That's just scientific research. That's just data. Because all that data is used on who is your intended target. That is non-white people, especially non-white people classified as Black. And just going through this text over again is just really telling on what has happened to us collectively and individually, and how our minds are so easily swayed because of the trauma that we have gone through. And then just secondly, how you talked about the messaging. I sent you, I posted something on WhatsApp about how the television actually controls your energetic function through the field of radiation that it sends through the cathode ray. And they know that it goes right to your internal systems, and that's what causes you to quote unquote go to sleep as you watch television. So now I can put you to sleep, and I already know that you're traumatized. Now I can feed you whatever you want, and it would do nothing but just destroy you. Things like things that we see, violence on television, the constant state of Black people being shown as violent individuals. We see that as non-white Black people, and we become that. But because the science has already been laid how to control people's actions through their mind.
Thank you, Mr. Yahweh. That's why I like having at least one other host on the broadcast with me. So it just allows me to just have thoughts I would not have without your contributions. So this book, Programmed to Kill, its premise is hey, are racists programming other races to go out and kill people? Is that why it has been reported that like people have gone out and done things, killed people, and then woken up, and then found sleeping in a car after a bizarre message was played in some sort of newscast or public conference released by some powerful racists? Possibly, but mind control, I suspect that's actually why Black males are going out and killing other Black males. I suspect that's why Black people are killing other Black people. I suspect that's a grave and very obvious form of mind control. So, programmed to kill. Who's been really programmed to kill? The all people on this planet, but especially people classified as Black, and they only have been programmed to kill each other, whereas racist men and racist women, I don't think anyone had to program them to kill. I think that was something that they were very effective at and efficient at. So they didn't need any help in that area, but they had to teach us to behave in this way. And I suspect it's largely because they've taken over our minds, and they have just taught us how to think. They've taught us how to think just like a racist. And if you're a racist, it's not going to be hard for you to go around and killing Black people. So if you teach a lot of Black people to think like a racist, then you have effectively taken over their minds and replaced it with some sort of racist mind that has no problem harming Black people, which can definitely explain all the Black people mistreating each other. It's because we don't have what maybe would be called a Black mind. I'm not even going to call it a Black mind because, even calling ourselves Black is a form of mind control, because we are told that we were Black by a racist man, a racist woman, a racist child. They have classified us as Black. I'm really a brown. I know the ancient Blacks appreciated their darkness and their skin, but I don't need any colors just attached to my being. I'm just a being. But the racists have thought otherwise. So did that make sense? I really hope that made sense. I would like some confirmation.
Yeah, it makes sense to me.
Thank you, Mr. Brandon. So continuing. And just me thinking about what I said, I'm just getting like just so many images of just how they've the racist man and racist woman. Whenever I say they, I'm talking about the usual suspects, and these people can only be white. So the usual suspects have just taught us to behave very insanely. And I didn't need this book to understand that mind control was real. This book just allows me to understand it further and to understand that, hey, you gotta torture a person to for mind control to be more susceptible. It's easier to mind control, brainwash children. Oh, maybe that's why racist men and racist women have placed us in a forever childlike state, or that's their plan, at least, to keep us in a forever childlike state. Because hey, children are easy. Children, according to this text, what did he say? Children are notoriously easy to mind control. How do you know that? How is this a well-known fact to racists? probably because a long time ago they decided that the non-white people, especially black people on this planet, are going to be the children, and they have brainwashed us, brain trashed us, mind controlled us ever since. So continue on with my notes that are actually written. I think we're going to page 13. I do hate that this is in Roman numerals, the introduction at least. All right. But it says here, the most severe of the dissociative the most severe of the dissociative disorders, MPD, DID, is in almost all cases created by psychological trauma so severe that the traumatic episodes cannot be integrated into the experiences of the core personality. By far, the most common cause of MPD, which is multiple personality disorder, is early childhood trauma, usually, but not always, resulting from horrific abuse by a parent or other adult guardian. Dr. Frank Putnam noted in 1989 that he was struck by the quality of extreme sadism that is reported by most MPD victims. Many multiples have told me of being sexually abused by groups of people, of being forced into prostitution by family members, or of being offered as sexual enticement to their mother's boyfriend. Oh wow, this is fascinating and telling of what kind of system we are in, because I know suspected racists who were abused, sexually abused by their family members, and the other family members didn't care, didn't give the constructive help needed for that situation. We're starting another program called the Usual Suspects, where we're going to learn about various races. But there's a racist by the name of Gertrude. Don't know, can't pronounce her or recall her second name, but she's famous for I think the film's The House on the Left, maybe based off her, what she did. But that's an excellent example of just what did this text, what did Dr. Frank Putnam call it? He said extreme sadism. Yeah, that's an excellent example of extreme sadism committed against a white child. White people do not care about children, and we have there's just so many examples. Let me there was a really recent one that I thought was, wow, you're 17 and you're a 17-year-old person, and you what did he do again? He kidnapped a white girl on her way to school. I think she was about 5 or 6, sexually abused her, and what did he do after that? Oh, decapitated her. Yeah, 17 years old, white boy, white child, white man, racist, terrorist. But yeah, this is the system we are in. So we must understand, hey, white people do not care about children, especially if they are studying dosing children with LSD. Liam Neeson is famous for he's famous for playing this sexual deviant, Alfred Kinsey, who's as well documented of doing a bunch of incorrect experiments and studies with children, basically having children being raped and calling it like studies for what he called science. But it's just white people not caring about children, and perhaps the petty, what David McGowan calls the petty Grassi, he doesn't call this system of justice. He calls this the pedography, which is what we seems to be having a lot of that incorrect activities committed against children. All right. Oh, but yeah, I'm looking for that the racist name, the 17-year-old boy. That's what I was bringing up before. All right, Austin Stig. Yeah, that's his name. Yeah, look him up. He and not only that, I mentioned Austin Sig because in this text, David McGowan, he says that when we're talking about Valerie, I think her name was Valerie Senison. I usually go in order. Now I'm jumping around, but it's okay. So I think her name is Valerie Senison. She was the psychiatrist, psychoanalyst who was doing the research on what is known as SRA, satanic ritual abuse, and just the trauma that occurs when children are abused. She was doing a ton of research on that, and she allegedly had pictures and whatnot, but it allegedly never came to the public, or it was hard to find. Anyways, it says here, let me get the page. Oh, all right. Page 21 of the introduction. So we have here, as it turns out, shockingly enough, such evidence is not that difficult to find as it may be to believe, especially for readers conditioned to think that all such stories are nothing but urban myths. Photographic evidence of exactly the sort described by Senison is being peddled all over the internet. But even with such compelling evidence being widely circulated, many will still be tempted to discount the stories told by survivors of such abuse. Skeptics are advised to keep in mind the words of Detective Robert Simmons of the Chicago Police Department. It is difficult for us to believe such crimes are occurring, but they are all over the United States, indeed all over the world, as we shall see in the next chapter. So the whole reality that there's this concept known as the deep web that is kind of famous and for people want to go find a bunch of incorrect material like pedophilia and gore porn and just videos of people dying. Even if videos of people are dying is very easy to find. Austin Sig, he was looking at a bunch of just torture stuff dealing in Area 8, a lot of child abuse dealing in Area 8, and his so-called his parents found out about it. Don't take him to a doctor, don't take him to a psychiatrist. Take him to a religious camp. Pray your deviant behavior away. Don't get some help so you're not watching images displaying children being raped to death. Don't do that, but this is the kind of system we're in. So, and we should know, hey, what does it mean to be white? It's possibly becoming an Austin Sig because you have a whole system behind you that, hey, allows and maybe even promotes this sort of behavior. But I may be in error. But continuing with my notes here. And also my question that I'm going to ask again, are non-white people the most dissociated people on the planet? You know, are we more susceptible to mind control, brainwashing, brain trashing? It's a question to think about. All right, let me go back to reading it in order. So something here that caught my eye, and when comparing it to the non-white reality, especially non-white Black reality, it says here, should I read it? Where should I start reading from? Okay. So it says here, other disassociators who had not been abused had suffered childhood trauma such as prolonged painful medical conditions, and before the age of 10 experienced the deaths of their parents. So this is these two things are super common to happen in the system. It could be deliberate, or it could be just, you know, well, actually there's no coincidences in the system. It also says here, as mental health professionals have long recognized the normal human reaction to highly stressful situations is what is known as the fight or flight response. Children, however, typically lack the ability to either fight off or flee from their attackers and abusers. This is particularly true, of course, for very young children. The human brain, that wonderfully resilient organ, therefore reacts in the best way that it can under the circumstances. It allows the child to mentally flee from the situation. When the abuse is of an extreme and sustained nature, the brain's response is to build a virtual wall around the traumatic experiences by creating a separate and distinct altered personality to deal with current and future episodes of abuse. So, and I compare this again to the situation and the condition of non-white people, as this is and also going back to that Neely Fuller clip, and he's mentioning the titles, but you would exchange the title word with just the labels, the labels that we give ourselves that don't indicate the truth. Is this how we are responding to the trauma of being classified as Black and what it means to be classified as Black? I think about all the so-called communities we create and we want to be a part of, and I'm doing a lot of thinking. Altered personality. It also reminds me of in the area 3 of music, a lot of artists they do something where they have a altered personality. I don't know if that has anything to do with actually it probably does have something to do with mind control, but I'm probably not intelligent enough to understand it yet. Again, I'm still learning, but that's something to think about. And there's a ton of conspiracy information around artists and their alter egos. I wouldn't spend too much time in investigating that, but if there's books written about it, then hey, maybe one can do some constructive learning. Oh yeah, and again, the racists are masters of this information, playing all sides, and we've learned that through listening to the introduction of this text. He's mentioned this information multiple times. He's mentioned the CIA producing false organizations to cause more confusion and to hide the truth, which is what the system's all about: hiding truth, keeping everybody confused and terrorized by the system, mostly the non-white people of the planet, especially Black people. So it has here, and this also will allow us to discuss the Yurugu a little bit more and how they operate. It says, although MPD/DID is a disorder listed in the DSM, I think it's 5 or 4. The Variable Bible, actually, let me see which one it is. I'm pretty sure it's 4. Oh yeah, it says 4. The Variable Bible of the psychiatric community, the public generally looks upon the notion of multiple personality with a healthy dose of skepticism. A skepticism encouraged by a news and entertainment media apparatus that generally mocks and ridicules the condition, and by a not insignificant number of psychologists and psychiatrists who deny the existence of MPD/DID. Strangely enough, many of the most visible and vocal members of the denial crowd tend to be psychologists and psychiatrists who have received funding from the CIA. So the Yurugu is a individual who is white and possibly a racist, but they have a way of using doctrine. Doctrine is a way that they have been able to contain themselves, control themselves, so to say. The doctrine is really important. What is written to them, especially when they're dealing with each other, like what is law, what is written, what's their policy, what's in their books. It's really important to them. He called it the Bible. He called the DSM the psychologist's Bible. But hey, we're not gonna use that that the part in the DSM that talks about multiple personality disorder, or I think this, what does DID stand for again? Let me remind myself. What does DID stand for? Dissociative identity disorder. That's a guess though. Yeah, but yeah, that's correct. So, but you guys, we're not gonna, when people try to quote or cite that this person experiencing MPD or DID, we're not gonna allow that. We're gonna we're just not gonna allow it. But everything else, schizophrenia, whatever else we'll allow, because our doctrine is law, but also we have white power, so we also have the ability to make this doctrine worthless, even to other white people who try to use it. If the most powerful races decide so. So that's very interesting of how the Yurugu works, and playing all sides, playing all angles, controlling everything. Because only white people have the power to publish the DSM, to put things in it mostly, and to say what can and can't be used from it. Powerful white people who are probably racist dictate all of that. Alrighty. Now I'm going to said that. We're at page 15 of the introduction. Oh yeah, so here David McGowan has a awesome set of questions. I think these questions are very logical, and their implications should provoke some some thinking, some serious thinking, perhaps. On to what are usual suspects up to? You know, what do they have planned? So some of the questions are, and this is from page 15 of the introduction. So how does all of this relate to the concept of mind control? In the simplest possible terms, what the term mind control refers to is a process of first enhancing and unwitting subjects' natural ability to dissociate, creating in essence the condition of multiple personality disorder, and then controlling that subject's dissociative states by creating one or more altered personalities that are effectively under the control of others and that are unknown to the core personality. But can this really be done? Is mind control really a phenomenon or merely the product of the fertile imaginations of various conspiracy theorists and self-described survivors? The answer to that question lies in the answers to several other questions, beginning with, do dissociative states occur naturally in the human species? Can a naturally occurring ability to disassociate be enhanced? Would the CIA and other US intelligence agencies be restrained or morally, ethically from inflicting such trauma? So just answer to I'm only going to answer the third question, just no. The first two folks can do some thinking about that. But just thinking about MPDs, DID, and mind control, I'm reminded of what I've observed and experienced in my existence. I've met and experienced people with bipolar disorder, and when I experienced an associate having an episode, it appeared to me that the person had become a whole different person. It appeared to me that, you know, my associate who I knew had become someone completely different. So I've seen the flip, the personality flip. I suspect I've seen that. Now, have the racists also noticed that you know, trauma or various disorders can produce a person to like we've been talking about, disassociate, and now there's someone else, and then they find a way to get that someone else under their control. That's what this text is premising. That's what David McGowan is suggesting is and I've seen people with bipolar disorder become different people, not actual different people, but somewhere in their minds something has definitely changed them. So I think the races may be working with that, and I think there's a lot of evidence that may suggest that. And just combining my experiences with the text, hey, David McGowan, he may be onto something. He may be onto something, and also the OSS, you know, the precursor to the CISA. We read the Simple Sabotage. Mayo. So we already know how serious they are. I know how serious they are. So they're just refining themselves, taking it to the next level, and that's just to the infinity. with them, the Yurugu. They have the will to keep this going forever, and the control is only getting more intense because they're coming for the minds now. They're coming for the thoughts. It seems they're coming for your thoughts. They've had your thoughts a long time ago. They just want to make them more eroded, more retarded. Just like what was done to me. Slight difference may be that I am attempting to counter it, and hopefully you will begin to do so as well. Those who find this broadcast. Okay, so did I get all my notes from page 15? Okay, yeah, so there's another thing, some here. Yep, I gotta read this right here. Just to reiterate that the motto, white people don't care about children. It seems, it appears. All right. So from page 15. How this question is answered depends largely on the individual reader's political orientation and level of awareness of national and world events. Serious students of covert operations know that the CIA has a long and very sordid history of sponsoring countless assassinations, civilian massacres, violent coups, and barbaric torture interrogation centers. And that's just a short list. This bloody and very well documented record suggests that there is little, if anything, that the CIA will not attempt to justify in the name of national security. Documents released through FOIA, Freedom of Information Act, requests have revealed that at the very least, the agency has not shied away from the funding and sponsoring studies in which very young children have been dosed with LSD for several weeks. All right, so I'm just, I don't have to read anymore, just psychedelics, children, not something that should ever mix, and ever, psychedelics with children consistently for weeks. Now that's a whole new level of scientific, meticulously planned evil. Just white people don't care about children. Racists who can only be white don't care about children, and if children are only useful to the system because white children are needed for the system to continue, and a lot of racists who I suspect are also pedophiles. I suspect most racists may be pedophiles or rapists or a combination of the two. But the only reason children benefit them is because they can get incorrect pleasure from children. But I may be in error. I may just be so just victimized and just upset that I am a black male and just gunning for all the white people. Or some of the things I'm saying could have some validity. It's up to everyone to make their own decisions. Oh, and this reminds me of drugs as a weapon against us. That will show that these so-called government agencies have a long track record of using drugs. I remember Paul Robeson. He was dosed by a racist organizer. He was dosed by a racist, and he basically mentally sabotaged to a degree to where hey, Paul Robeson was never the same again. And I don't have the precise information, so folks should do their own research. But I recall hearing that on some audio recording that some powerful racists, just if you're a racist, you're already powerful. I don't even have to say powerful. But some racists said that they did a number of things to Huey P. Newton You know, they did a number on him, and yeah, they made Huey P. Newton a person who apparently was doing the things that he was doing after they tortured him. So mind control and using acid and psychedelics to drug and brainwash people, very common. Actually, this MK Ultra is such a popular thing. At one point, it was that there was a experiment that I know that they did where they would have prostitutes on the like pretending that they're gonna be like picking up Johns, and then the prostitutes would be working with the CIA, and they would be dosing their Johns, and then on the other side of the in the motel room or the hotel room where the mirror is actually a two-way mirror where after the Johns have been dosed, they're being observed by the racist scientists. You know, so yeah, this is yeah. So when he asked, would the CIA and other intelligence agencies be restrained morally or ethically from inflicting such trauma? First of all, I don't know what ethically means, but no, they won't. No, racists have no problem committing atrocities against people, animals, nature. Hey, even if the creator possibly, if they could get their hands on it, but I may be digressing a little bit. Let me continue. Page 16 from the introduction. Let me see what my. Alrighty, so the question I have written here is this what was done during the chattel slavery phase of white supremacy? So let's have it. Let me read here. It says, wait first. Yes, let me read here. George Esterbrook was clearly convinced that was indeed the case. He claimed that once a person's core personality had been split, it was then possible to control one or more of the outer personalities without the conscious awareness of the primary personality. So when white people are first making us into slaves, and that they first, disassociate us from our original personality, whatever that may have been, they make us into these creatures that they called slaves and Negroes and Negroids and niggers and whatnot. Did they make us into these through some through what can be called, torture, domination, and mind control? Continue with the text. This process, according to Esterbrook, allowed the intelligence community to create super spies, unwitting agents who were willing to follow any orders unquestionably. Among other duties, these super spies made ideal careers since they could be fed sensitive information while in a controlled dissociative state, and therefore have no conscious awareness that they were transporting important data. Even under torture, the super spy will reveal nothing. As he or she was aware, there was nothing to reveal. So just, racists are very crafty. And it's just it's just a lot time and energy trying to actually produce. We heard from George Whitley, and that may not be his name, but watch the documentary Mission Mind Control. But the very first beginning of this broadcast, white people are attempting to find out ways to control a person's will. And here again, they are attempting to do the same thing in order to continue their business but very, very crafty. Like who even thinks in this manner? Well, a racist does, of course, but they have so much power already that they can just, it's not hard. They can just, pay someone to do whatever they want done. But the Yurugu is so paranoid, possibly, so paranoid of everything, possibly, which is why it must always be in a constant state of gathering arms and gathering intelligence against everything, because the threat is everywhere. Because the threat is everything not white, and most things on this planet are not white. So is that why they're attempting to get super spies? Because hey, they don't want no trust. There's no trust. Only thing they trust is the system, not each other. All right, so we're going to page 16. Let me see. Have any notes here? Oh yeah, and this text is just a reminder, a reiteration. Hey, the racists will study everything, and they will attempt to use it too. They study how the mind works, study how thoughts are received and transmitted, and then they'll eventually try to use it. They're not just studying for fun. They will attempt to use it to support and make their business stronger, which is what we're seeing here. They want to make super spies to maintain the system, not go out and produce justice, not go out and solve problems, but to probably commit more war crimes, more maximum racist aggression acts, stuff like that. So, oh yeah, here we go. So I shared the wrong note. The question. Oh no, I'll just ask the question again because it fitted there earlier. But the question again is this what is being done to Black people now, and is this what was done to us during the slavery, the chattel slavery phase of white supremacy? It says here, and this is page 18 of the page 17 of the introduction. Esther Brooks shied away from the details, only alluding to the severe psychic torture that is required to split a person's core personality and then exert control over the altered personalities that are created. The trauma is often referred to as euphemistically as a form of hypnotism. In one passage, for example, Esther Brooks noted that multiple personalities are caused by a form of hypnotism in the first place. We will see that the emotional shock produces exactly the same results as hypnotism. Later, he came a little bit closer to the truth. Multiple personality can be both caused and cured by hypnotism. Remember that war is a grim business. Suppose we deliberately set up that condition of multiple personality to further the ends of military intelligence. Still later, he came even closer. Everyone can be thrown into the deepest state of hypnotism by the use of what I term the Russian method. No holds barred, deliberate disintegration of the personality by psychic torture. The subject might easily be left a mental wreck, but war is a grim business. So, during And before so-called chattel slavery, we have Black people subjected to what I would call psychic torture, watching so-called brothers and sisters and mothers and fathers being maimed, being raped, and you being forced to rape them or them being forced to rape you, all in an effort to mentally break you down and possibly destroy whatever personality, whatever mind you had before you have met me, the white supremacist, the racist who is now waging this race war against you. That is definitely psychic torture, being encased on a boat and maybe wondering if you're gonna get fed to the sharks, or maybe hoping to get fed to the sharks, because that'll be your escape out of the feces-filled and misery-ridden place that you're in, due to the racists who have captured you now and now have started their, mental conditioning of you, or making you a slave, a person who's going to become very familiar with chains and locks and beatings and not being able to think what you want to think and say what you want to say. That is definitely psychic torture. So yeah, contextualizing this text with what's been done to Black people, I can understand that. Yeah, we are definitely still in some sort of hypnotic state, under mind control and dominated. However, I can explain the problem in so many ways, but the problem remains that white people are not only in charge or in control of us, it seems, but in control of our minds. They have the ability to greatly influence what we think. And if you influence what a person can think, then their behavior is pretty much plotted out, I suspect. But very tragic, very, very tragic. Yeah, I don't think Asher Brooks is aware that the psychic torture was taking place during what they call the Middle Passage sometimes, transatlantic slave wars, just the race war, just white supremacy, racism, honestly. So this ties in exactly to what I just said, also from page 17. And decades after the publication of Esther Brooks' seminal work, another psychiatrist hypnotist by the name of Paul Verdier wrote an obscure book entitled Brainwashing and the Courts, an expose on capturing the human mind. Verdier's manuscript began on a promising note with this acknowledgement: it must be accepted that brainwashing is now being used here in the United States by devious persons with personal gain in mind. Unfortunately, the author followed that bold proclamation with a woefully inaccurate accounting of who those devious persons might be. He did, though, provide a reasonably good description of the process of mind control, although Verde, like Esther Brooks, did not use the term mind control. So Verde, he goes on to explain like mind control in a super more scientific manner. But the main important thing here is the title of his book, Brainwashing and the Course, and an expose on capturing the human mind, which the racists have done and they've mastered long ago. And the racists are aware of this. The racists know what the other races are up to. This is a document that shows examples of psychic torture, mind control, or at least the process that these possibly CIA agencies were doing on people, the methods they were using to break a person down. So and this is a document that is distributed from law agencies in U.S. So-called U.S. Department of Justice. So we have first we have yeah, and they say in this document, I've gone over this document in our Halloween broadcast. Find it if you want a better or just find a document. Email me or post and I'll find a way to get this document to you. Anyways, this document, they admit that yes, this is a problem and it's being conducted against children, and yeah, and this is what they're doing. You know, they have the techniques and tons of stuff. They go over how they break down the minds of the cult initiate, the victim of mind control. And they have here, we're gonna get into this force, like just the various forms of psychic torture. And many of these things have happened to Black people every single day during chattel slavery and this race camp known as Planet Earth. A lot of these things are still probably taking place against Black people. But yeah, I'm gonna come back to this document when we get to that part. But we have here, yeah, here we go. General physical torture, mutilations by marking, Black people, ritually. It was a racist tradition of brand your slave, brand your person that had dark skin that you called a slave. You were a white person practicing white supremacy in one of its most grotesque forms, chattel slavery. But yeah, I'll come back here when we start talking about satanic ritual abuse. This document. Oh yeah, also extra books. I said it earlier, but I'm gonna read the whole part. Page 17 again. War is indeed a grim business. The race war he's talking about. War is indeed a grim business, as Esterbrook was apparently fond of stating, but that argument hardly justified the type of research the doctor endorsed, including using children who are notoriously easy to hypnotize as research subjects. The system has just trained us, it's in plain sight, it's right there. So yeah, you don't see it, doctor, just the word doctor is supposed to be actually, maybe I'm confused. So maybe I don't know what a doctor is. Let me see what a doctor is supposed to be, because maybe doctors are not supposed to be constructive people. All right. Okay, doctor, a qualified practitioner of medicine, a physician, a person who holds a doctorate. I treat someone, and the verb is change the content or appearance. All right, so a doctor is not, you don't, if you're a doctor, it doesn't mean you have to be constructive or helping people. So it's just a title. All right, awesome. So because I'm thinking, he's these doctors, we have a ton of doctors, but a lot of them are involved with just the business of destroying people or harming them, not helping them. But I'm glad I did some learning about what doctors actually mean. But yeah, extra books bragging about his knowledge that he has about hypnotizing and brainwashing people, understands that children are largely victims to this brainwashing, mind control situation. Doesn't care. Actually, according to the author, he endorses it, which is to be expected in this system. See what notes I have for this section. Oh, actually, we're almost there. So yeah, here we're gonna get there. We're just lot of this ties into the 2022 existence of non-white people. So page 18 of the introduction, Verder went on to explain that in order to achieve truly lasting states of brainwashing or mind control, it is necessary to subject the victim to profound and deep emotional states. All right. So have non-white people been trained to be highly emotional? I think so. Has that been deliberate? I think so. Continuing with the text. The recommended emotional states are fear, shock, and anxiety, all of which have an intense disinhibitive effect on the human brain. Even more effective is pain because, according to the eminent neurologist Dr. Wilder Penfield, sensations of pain from the muscular sensory system enter the subcortical brain regions directly. So, wow, fear, shock, anxiety. Now, when I was more confused, and I can observe these emotions and non-white people every day. And if I wanted to, I could spend most of my day seeing these behaviors, due to the power of the internet. But has the system been designed to constantly bombard non-white people, especially Black people, with circumstances that are going to produce fear in our bodies? Is it going to produce shock and anxiety in our bodies? I think yes. I think the system does do that. Is this a deliberate attempt to retard our brains? I think so. He calls it, and the doctor calls it, these constant sensations, incorrect sensations that are being given to non-white people by the racists. They have a disinhibitive effect on the human brain, so it's not constructive. And this system is very, very well designed. And yes, it really speaks for itself. I'm going to continue because I'm going to say more about this. Continuing on the same page. With a passage seemingly lifted from Esteban's writings, Verdier left no doubt that pain and fear are the most useful items in the MK Ultra toolbox. Russian political scientists do support the belief that given enough punishment, all people in any time or place are susceptible to hypnotic control. Verdier echoes other of Esteban's beliefs as well, including the idea that brainwashing could and should be widely utilized for benevolent purposes, and the notion that children are ideal candidates for mind control programming. So not only are children notoriously easy to brainwash and mind control, but now they're ideal candidates. Hey, if you're going to be brainwashing people, it should be kids. It should be the children. They're not. What else are there? What? So very, very interesting, very telling of what kind of exactly what kind of system we are in. It's not a system that cares about children, not for constructive purposes, at least. And also another Yurugu moment, another way we can understand the Yurugu, because it says, hey, we can utilize brainwashing for a benevolent purposes. Now, I thought benevolent was supposed to be something constructive. Let's see what benevolent means, because yeah, still learning. So benevolent is supposed to be well-meaning and kindly. Wow. Is being subjected to psychic torture, being dosed with mind-altering substances, is that well-meaning and kindly, benevolent? No. I suspect this doctor, who is this doctor here? Radier? I suspect Dr. Radier may have been a racist. A quite intelligent, insane, well thought racist. Mr. Jawu, like to share.
Thank you, sir. Very fast. I wasn't trying to disconnect what you were saying, but you said something very pertinent. You're talking about these doctors, and I'm sorry, this part, you just go ahead. I'm sorry, please. Sorry.
Oh, no worries. If it comes back, just jump in. Just jump in. Yeah. So I get. So yeah, Verdier, these doctors, highly suspect that they are even bold enough to document what they said about mind control in children. But then again, we had Alfred Kinsey. He was literally having experiments and studies where children are being raped, like clockwork. So we shouldn't be surprised by Verdier's sentiments on what should be done with the children, and that we should use mind control for benevolent purposes. It just reminds me of the famous just racist mindset. You know, we have to kill you to save you. We have to destroy you to help you. You know, we want to save you from communism, so we fucking blow up. Off code. My error. I didn't mean to curse. But I'm a deranged. I've been made deranged by the system. I did not choose to be this way. Anywho, we're gonna destroy communism. We're gonna go help all those yellow people in Vietnam from communism. Drop all the Agent Orange. You know, we're helping them. We're helping them from communism. We're helping you, dark people, from the jungle. You don't like the jungle, do you? We're taking you out of the civilization, right? We're teaching you religion. We're teaching you all this stuff. You know, we're helping you by making you slaves. We're helping you by we're being benevolent. We're being well-meaning and kindly, even though we take a lot of whips and bullets and guns and chains. We're still benevolent, right? And right. And Mr. Yahweh, please share.
Sorry about that earlier. I had a lot of windows open. I was trying to find it. So as you're talking about Werther, you know, in this entire book, I've been doing, you know, just researching as you went through the text, and I found this book that I'm going to drop it. This book and another one in the thing, but it's Dr. Delgado, right? Dr. Jose Delgado, a professor at Yale. This is years before Werther came out with Brainwashing and the Occult. Jose Delgado came out with a book called Physical Control of the Mind Toward a Psycho-Civilized Society. And that was one of the big influences on Werther's book, Brainwashing and the Occult, Exposing and Capturing the Human Mind. That's what you say. Sorry about that. I mean,
no, can you please read that title again? Because that is an interesting title.
I have found some. That's why I came early and I, you know, kind of stuttered because I have so many windows open as you're talking about this text, and you know, and it played. I'm just opening up windows. This book is by Dr. Jose Delgado, professor at Yale Medical, published by Harper and Row. The book chronicled Dr. Delgado's research, funded by the CIA, ONI, and Air Force Intelligence, into behavior modification through electronic brain implants and radio waves. In the last chapter, entitled Toward a Psycho-Civilized Society, Delgado outlined his dark vision in a society based on mind control. A few years later, Dr. Paul Vietor published Brainwashing and the Coast as an expose on capturing the human mind in 77. So I just wanted to drop that little bit of, where things come from. We're trying to track down the mind of the Arugu here. So right before that, Jose Delgado dropped a nice piece of book, and I found another one that I will not talk about on this platform.
Thank you, Mr. Yahoo. And this Jose, this Jose Manuel Rodriguez Delgado, yes, see the races, even though they sometimes speak a different language, come from different areas of the world, they are working together to make their system stronger. Because he's a so-called Spanish person. Spanish, what's the Spanish? It's code for white. So I appreciate you sharing him, because he's a white person from across the ways.
I just sent you the article I was reading from. I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm sorry, sir. But I just sent you the article to your WhatsApp if you want to drop it in or something. But it's very revealing.
Yeah, of course, CIA funded. And what you said, thank you for sharing about Jose, because this study, I come from a highly terrorized race unit. Everyone in my existence, and everyone of kin to me or related to me is also a victim of racism. So we've been very terrorized, and I have a grandpa who was subjected to electromagnetic shock therapy, and this was told to me by my victim mother, who definitely would not lie about this. So he was subjected to this, and I wonder, is that possibly why in his later years? Well, actually, not even in his later years, because my entire existence, he was never all the way there. He was always, just mumbling to himself, rambling on about stuff I couldn't quite comprehend. Probably because the racists then they did an excellent job at sabotaging my so-called grandpa. But yeah, we learned about that. We learned about that, and body keeps the score. Electroshock therapy being done on veterans. My grandpa was a so-called veteran of the United States of US of A. Anywho, very, very significant that we're reading this text, and I hope it is of constructive value. And greetings to Miss Ende. Miss Ende, nice to see you on the program, and greetings to CE. Don't know what you're gonna have to explain what that term you put in there in the chat is. I'm not even gonna say it, I don't want to cause any confusion or have to do my so continue with the notes. Oh, we're on the are we at the page yet? No, we're almost there. We're almost there. So I do have some of the footnotes highlighted. Let me just read those. Dr. Panfield was, and this is for page 17 again. Page 18 of introduction. I hate Roman numerals. Dr. Panfield was an associate of the notorious medical. Let me read over. Dr. Panfield was an associate of the notorious medical torture practitioner and MK Ultra operative, Dr. David Ewan Cameron. So a person to research Dr. Penfield and Dr. David Ewan Cameron. And another footnote I have highlighted on this page, the final chapter of Radier's book entitled benevolent brainwashing in the future contains the following recommendation. The process of brainwashing could be used effectively and economically to solve many of society's pressing human problems, which until now have seemed virtually unsolvable. So, two suspected races from different parts of the planet created documentation that, hey, we gotta use brainwashing to control the future. What are we doing? We're sleeping on this awesome technology, because they see this as a technology, I suspect, just something they can use to support their system, control their subjects. But very, very fascinating. And again, there's nothing benevolent about attempting to subvert the thoughts of a person. Come on, it's absolute incorrectness. Super evil. All right, continuing. We're on 19 now, and this is where we this is, I think this is the first time satanic ritual abuse is mentioned. Let me make sure. Do I have any specific notes about that? Oh yeah, so okay, so just satanic ritual abuse, just to give folks like a really fast introduction to what that is. This document, I'm gonna put this document. We'll put it in chat, but I don't have a link to it. You have to send you the actual file. But this is essentially what satanic ritual abuse can be understood as. It's just, it's what I suspect to be racists who are practicing racism in a very interesting manner, but it goes to serve the same purpose, to make them stronger and to just harm, and maybe involves some white sacrifice. And to understand white sacrifice, go to producejustice.com, order your copy of the code book. Hey, and actually they may still be sold out. So go to amazon.com and throw Jeff Bezos or hopefully Neely Fuller and get some money as well. But get your copy from Amazon if you have to. No matter what, get your copy of the code book. Amazon is now selling the code book. So if producejustice.com doesn't have it, go to the Amazon and get your copy of the code book. Because a lot of white sacrifice, I suspect, is involved in satanic ritual abuse, but not nearly as much as the non-white people who have been killed and tortured in the name of what is called satanic ritual abuse. So we have just some of that is when just he's a super important one. Confusing doctrine, non-white people I know this document is talking about just the specific victims of satanic ritual abuse, but this is this code, the whatever code the satanic code is using, it comes from the same racist code. Because hey, confusing doctrine, isn't that, we have to, you gotta pay, you have to understand your taxes, you gotta understand, your tenants law, you gotta understand your housing agreements, your HR, your housing association. You have to just, so much paper, there's so much bureaucracy in the system where all you're trying to do is exist, but so much confusing paperwork that we have to deal with as Black people, as non-white people. And that's not by accident. The system could be smooth running, it could be easy peasy, but nope, you have to have this document, that document. You have to be, it's just whack how we have to exist. questioning, the chattel slavery phase of white supremacy, questioning was not allowed. And that's evident of how Black people behave in 2022. We still have a hard time asking questions and being questioned. When someone asks us a question, we feel like we're being and insulted. When a Black person asks me a question, I used to be like, why are you asking me a question? I didn't understand the purpose of questions. And I suspect that's because we have been trained that when a person asks us a question, we've been taught to see, hey, why is a Black person asking me a question? Who do they think they are? I think that's the programming we've been given. And that's also the programming that takes place when a person is being conditioned and maybe even mind controlled by satanic cults, But and then there's just tons. I've had it on this for a while, so people have been able to hopefully look at it. But we're gonna get into the here we go, the abuse, the physical abuse. So one of them is physical deprivation, chronic disruption of sleep, starvation, excessive exposure to heat or cold. This breaks down resistance and increases susceptibility to brainwashing. Now, how do non-white people have to exist on planet Earth? Always worrying about surviving, having enough food, I worry about paying my bills, so I'm gonna get my electricity turned off. My electricity get turned off. I'm gonna be cold during the winter because I got a heater that needs electricity. I don't have a generator because I'm a Black person. Most Black people don't have generators. So I'm just this is racist. I'm not gonna call it satanic ritual abuse anymore. I'm just gonna say racist abuse or just mistreatment. But this is what law enforcement have documented as a way that courts, so-called satanic courts, use to mind control, brainwash people. So we have this was mentioned, and we're going to read about this later from I'm going to read it again. It was read already if you were here with us when we played the introduction of the book. But we have here forced participation in murder abuse. For children, this may be real. Adult hand guides child to stab baby or staged. The victim was already dead or the child's participation was suggested under hypnosis. Child is then labeled a murderer, unlovable, a criminal who will be locked up by the police, crazy, and awaiting psychiatric lockup. Ultimately, many of the children will be programmed to murder for the call on cue. We're reading a book called Program to Kill. Coincidence? I think not. They are taught by trainers how to kill, collect blood, and skin victims. Even high-level trainers still go through continuous torture in order to stay vicious. And again, this is law enforcement telling other law enforcement about, hey, this is what we're doing out there. Be careful, be on the lookout. This is some, this is True Detective, but times a billion and real. If that analogy made any sort of sense, I hope it did. If people seen season 1 of True Detective, it's very occultic and involving of child assault. All right, what else do we have here? You did this one already. Drug abuse. The most potent drug on the planet is the drug of white supremacy. So yeah, here we go right here. This is one I wanted to read because it just reminds me of just a very common tradition and practice racists have been known for. So it says forced eating of flesh, excrement, and other fetid material. This is routine and is generally and generally force fed or given to child as a trick. Concealed as something else after the child has been starved for days. Ritual meals of blood, flesh, semen, urine, etc. are consumed by all cult members during sacrifices to Satan. These are commonly accompanied by nausea and vomiting. It is quite common for survivors to be very suspicious of food in general and to avoid many food types due to color or texture. Some survivors seem anorexic and others eat compulsively, eat to combat taste memories. Man, imagine being so traumatized, you have taste memories. Oh boy, if you're black, you don't have to. You know, it's called intergenerational trauma, and a lot of black people have various just I'm gonna call them just weird, just things about them involving their taste and food that's unique. You know, our taste buds are very unique, and some of us won't eat particular items, particular things, maybe because of this thing called intergenerational trauma. Maybe somewhere down the line on the plantation, one of our ancestors had to eat a body part of one of their fellow slaves, one of their fellow prisoners, because that was very common for a racist man, a racist woman, a racist child to chop off a flesh of a, my bad, to chop off a piece of flesh from a black person and make another black person consume it. This is a very common form of torture and how to, you know, just mentally destroy a person. You have to mentally destroy a person to rebuild them in the manner that you want them. So it seems like the satanic races are just taking notes from what their ancestors did to us. You know, it's just nothing new. Just it's been refined. It's been refined. It seems. So that's a bit of that. If you want this this document, you want to do some more study, please do not hesitate to reach out to counteringrws@gmail.com and you will receive this document. It's counteringrws@gmail.com. I'm putting it in the chat right now. All right, and this document is very lengthy, tons of information, tons of hey, you want to learn about racism, what it is, and how it works. It even has the oh, it has the holidays on here too. But I went over these. Find our study on Halloween, and you will I will get further information on these holidays and what they mean. But David McGowan mentioned. Let me find it real quick. He mentioned something very interesting. Yes, it's in the footnotes. It's in the footnotes on, let me see. It's on the footnotes on page 20. And it says here, so he's talking about a study. I think no, it's a report. Yeah, an independent report from I think from 2000. I'm gonna read it later in the broadcast, but I'm gonna read a footnote right now because I scrolled through the quote holidays from that document and David McGowan mentioned it earlier. But it says that right here on the footnote, the timing of the report on this landmark study was rather curious. The Independent published a story on April 30th, 2000, otherwise known as it's a German name, not even gonna try to pronounce it, but in English it is translated as Night of the Witches or Beltane, along with the summer and winter solstices. Night of the Witches or Beltane is amongst the most significant of the occult holidays. So I read this because I remember from the document I had up earlier, the Satanic Occult Awareness document. It says in our document, hey, on these dates right here, these dates, the Night of the Witches, the winter solstice, on these dates, this is when more people are probably being tortured and sacrificed. Probably because these people, these satanic cult people, who are probably racist, they like to use these horror days to do their stuff. The way they're practicing racism, they think they're using magic or something. Anyway, it's a real bizarre racism, but it's happening, and we should be very motivated to understand it in order to eliminate it. All righty, so tons of just masters of deceit, masters of sabotage. The races truly are. So on page 19, we learn about Paul and Shirley Eberler. Yeah, I can't read these names too well, and can't read too well in general, but I'm still learning. But anyways, on page 19, we have here. But actually, before I get to Paul and Shirley, I want to read a little bit more about Radir. It's from the same page. The actions that Radir predictably attributed to brainwashing communists precisely mirror the stories that have been told repeatedly by self-described survivors of ritual abuse. These victims speak of receiving frequent death threats directed against both themselves and their family members. They speak of also having those threats reinforced through their forced witnessing and even participation in the killing of others. So we have just testimony, well, not testimony per se, but David McGowan is referring to testimony about these things occurring, and we just saw a government document that details a number of things like this occurring. So yeah. Yep. I'm not saying everything I'm saying or displaying here is 100% truth, but I'm sure there is some truth in some of the things that's being said here. All right, so now we're getting into Paul and Shirley Eberler. I don't know how to say her name. Eberler. I don't know how to say that. Anywho, so we have on page 19, there has been a tremendous amount of energy expended to discredit all such stories, referring to the document I showed to you all. So all that stuff, is a huge effort to discredit it. If you walk around talking about satanic cults, abusing children, sacrificing kids, don't expect people to take you serious. That's just, this is the system we're in, and the racists have done a wonderful job at, making this information seem quite outlandish, quite, you're right. They're not, I would say satanic, because people are not standing in circles, sacrificing animals, burning pentagrams. They're not doing that. Come on, it's 2022. All right. So here we go. There has been a tremendous amount of energy expended to discredit all such stories. At the forefront of the movement to deny the validity of the stories told by countless survivors is the False Memory Syndrome Foundation, a group led by a truly vile coalition of CIA psychiatrists and accused, and in some cases, convicted pedophiles. So you have this organization. Let me see if this organization still exists. False Memory Syndrome Foundation. This place still exists. The CIA, according to David McGowan, this is the CIA front. And according to Drugs as a Weapon Against Us, the racists have a long track record of creating organizations to discredit and produce a lot of disinformation. So yeah, it seems like this place, this organization is still functioning in some manner. And hey, if you want to like see what the so-called CIA are saying about it, you can check it out right here on their website. But hey, these people are people who are allowed to run the organization may also be convicted pedophiles. Hey, that's a little bizarre. It seems very suspicious as well. Actually, it's more suspicious than it is bizarre. But continuing on with just the disinformation and just the super in your face. This is in your face. If information is researched and verified. And David McGowan, if people research David McGowan and you do some investigation and you find his website, you'll see that this is a real serious suspected racist journalist. You know, he was not just cranking out any old anything. He has footnotes. He was very what I would call studious. And so yeah, I don't think he would have put this up in here if there was not a lot of information backing it. Continuing with the text, also playing a key role in the movement are Paul and Shirley Iberil, the authors of a purportedly authoritative book entitled The Politics of Child Abuse. The Iberils books attempt to lay the blame for virtually all child abuse accusations and prosecutions on overzealous prosecutors, therapists, and parents. Their argument might be a little more credible, however, if the Iberils themselves were not known to Los Angeles police as distributors of child pornography, a fact that media outlets conveniently and rather consistently ignore while touting the Iberils as authorities in the field of child abuse. Wow, that's fascinating information. You know, racists are crafty folks and just tacky folk as well, because this is, you know, if you know, racists are going to investigate other races possibly. So you know, don't have if you're trying to convince people that you're not if you're trying to convince people or produce information that is going to convince people that child abuse is not what it actually is, maybe don't be a child abuser, you know. And I did just a tiny bit. I just looked up their Wikipedia page, Paul and Shirley, and their publication, just the first publication, is highly suspect if one is familiar with just the core and how they will code various incorrect things involving area 8 and children. They will code these things in their books and whatnot. So one of their publications, Paul and Shirley Iberil, haven't read it, haven't seen the cover. I just see the title. And it's highly suspect to me, this title. And it's called The Adventures of Mrs. Pussycat. Actually, let me bring up. Let me see. Cause is this a kid's book? If it's a kid's book, that's just icing on a cake right there. Let me see if it's a kid's book. There's a there was a movie. Yeah, this is a some sort of children's book. So there's a movie like that. So here it is. The book. I don't want to have some children's book. There's a movie. I forgot what it's called. It could have been called Running or Raging. I forgot what it's called, but it involved a white man who starts taking care of this white child, and this white child gets kidnapped by a racist man and a racist child, and they have they're doing child pornography, and they're making child porn and whatnot, and they're like selling it and whatnot. And I'm like, oh wow. When I saw the movie, I didn't think much of it. I didn't think that was a very common thing going on around the planet. Racist man, racist woman, racist child working together on this business of child pedophilia. I did not know this was taking place, but I haven't even thought of the movie except for when I was reading this part right here and thinking about Paul and Shirley Ibril, who are alleged child pornography distributors. So it's just it's not a pleasant place for Earth. It's not a pleasant place because racism promotes and produces every incorrect thing I've ever had to talk about on this channel is because we're in a system of racism, which is why I have no problem begging, hey, everyone who ever hears this and white people who hear this and who are not racist, hey, can we produce a system of justice by guaranteeing no one is allowed to be mistreated and those who need help receive constructive help? That's why we're doing this study. That's why we do all our studies, because we want to produce justice, because the stuff we have right now is quite grotesque and abhorrent and shouldn't be happening. So until there's justice, we're gonna have to report and learn about all this whack, evil stuff. So yeah, continuing, and thanks for your participation and contributions. I'm gonna get to the chat after I cover more of my notes. I forgot to say this earlier, but pain and fear, we talked about it. Redir talked about it. Body Keeps Score talks about it, but pain and fear, those sensations, pain, fear, that is how the races have conquered and dominated the minds. That is how they have conquered and dominated people. Using those two things, pain and fear. And I may be wrong. And I'm also deception. Deception has played a large role as well. Mind control is a incredible form of deception, especially the kind of mind control the racists are trying to produce here in this text that we're talking about. They want a person to be able to complete a mission, like an assassination mission, and not even know that they have completed it. Not even know they've done it. That's the kind of deception that they're trying to get at. And me saying that allows me to understand the deception given to us. They have made us victims, but the mind control is we don't want to say we're victims. We want to pretend that we're everything but victims. We even get mad when someone targets the mind control, targets the deception, when someone says, hey, we were victims of racism, I'm not a victim. That's the programming, that's the mind control being targeted. And it's so powerful that, hey, the response is, I'm not a victim. I'm not a prisoner of war. I'm not Black. I'm a Black American, you know? So I really hope this makes sense. I really hope I'm not some rambling Black male. And if I am, I'd rather be at least I'm trying to solve a problem in my confused and pitiful state of mind. So we have here. Oh yeah, so yeah, I think to reiterate, Paul and Shirley Ibril, I think these people may have been pedophiles, and I think their first publication, The Adventures of Mrs. Pussycat, I think if people were to read that, I'm pretty sure it's heavily coded and one could probably learn a lot from it. And allegedly famous and notorious in Los Angeles, my home race camp. But continuing. Also on page is this again? I hate Roman numerals. Page 19. Contrary to conventional wisdoms, claims of ritual abuse are certainly not a modern phenomenon. Such claims have actually been around for quite some time, and they were even given legitimacy by no less an historical figure than Sigmund Freud. Over 100 years ago, Freud recognized that abuse was likely the primary cause of the psychological problems he observed in his female patients. So, not gonna read all of this part because it's quite lengthy. Essentially, he's making Freud detected the pattern that hey, the people who come to my practice and who have been severely sexually abused, super brutalized, they're having they have personality like disorders or something. They have these grand disillusions, these grand disillusional experiences and whatnot. Basically is what he's getting at. And then David McGowan ties this into jeez. And David McGowan ties this into satanic ritual abuse and satanic accords actually being around for hundreds of years. He says as far back as the 1600s, people were being sacrificed for various purposes. He actually says here, I'm actually gonna read it and then say my notes on it. We are now on page 20 of the, oh no, actually no, I went I actually read that. We're on 20. We're on 20. Okay, so okay, so he also mentions other doctors who have made the same observations that people is experiencing abuse seem to have more severe psychological problems afterwards. And and what's interesting, maybe I'm glad I'm fumbling so much because I'm able to think more. But this document right here, this satanic it's called Satanic Core Awareness. Here it is. The Satanic Core Awareness document. It says somewhere in the document, everyone should read it for themselves, but somewhere in this document, it says that in the process of abusing the child, of torturing the child, it's very, very likely that that child will also become an abuser or a sadistic, vile person who's going to go on to abuse children and keep it going, keep the business going, the white supremacy, racism, keep it going. And probably that's sometimes what we're seeing. We're seeing no, we see that a lot actually. A lot of so-called serial killers and have expressed that expressed being mistreated by their parents and whatnot, you know. So very, very, very interesting. Yeah, and so the psychological problems, either I guess you're gonna be crazy, or are you gonna be what people call crazy. You're gonna have severe mental problem when you are severely sadistically sexually abused as a child, and which is the whole business, some of the business of white supremacy. So I say all that so this part I'm reading here can make sense. So page 20, it says, should this remarkable consistency, and again the consistency is hey, all the sexual abuse leading to people being mentally disturbed, should this remarkable consistency spanning several centuries be attributed to some kind of recurring mass hysteria, or can it be explained by the fact that, as historians and the Chicago Tribune have stated, satanic cults have been documented in Europe and America as far back as the 1600s. Has there been something dark and evil lurking in the shadows, only occasionally rising its head, at which times its existence is denied, its perpetrators cast as victims, and its real victims mocked and ridiculed? All right, so I already discussed this earlier, the dark and evil lurking in the shadows. David McGowan is now dead. I don't know if he could be a dead racist, but I suspect when he was alive, he's probably a racist, because he was attributing darkness with evil. He's attributing shadows with evil and incorrectness, when, as far as we've been learning, the people doing this stuff, mind control, Verdier, Brooks, the OSS, CIA, FBI, and all the other agencies, these are white people. So ain't nothing dark about, anything happening. It seems very pale or white business or racism to me, but yeah, that language is another form of mind control that they have us under, using dark and evil, and as if they are interchangeable, as if they relate. That's incorrect. So but what he says after this is very significant. He says the perpetrators of this child abuse, the people who are committing the acts, they're portrayed as victims, and the actual victims are ridiculed. Now that sounds very familiar, as a victim of racism who is often mistreated for attempting to communicate that reality. This is very interesting, and I'm sure we can relate to that. I'm sure we can relate to that. Okay. Yep, we live in we exist in a system that's what it does. The system makes white supremacists the victims. They have a giant victim mentality, huge victim mentality. They must be the victim. And we are strong, independent people. We're free. That's definitely a massive form of deception, confusion, mind control. So yeah, yep, I'll read this part too because it's very interesting. And we're wrapping up second and last page. Again on page 20. Truth be told, the stories told by survivors of ritual abuse tend to be discrediting. I don't know why. One of the potential benefits, therefore, of cloaking mind control activity in satanic rituals is the operations. Okay, I'm just gonna start this all over. Truth be after I have some water. Been going on for a bit. All righty. Truth be told, the stories told by survivors of ritual abuse tend to be self-discrediting. One of the potential benefits, therefore, of cloaking mind control activity in satanic rituals is that the operations are largely immune to disclosure. Even if an operation is uncovered, the stories told by children tend to be so outlandish, so far removed from the world that we know that the claims are easily cast aside as the byproduct of a child's fertile imagination. In May 2000, however, a report commissioned by the United Kingdom's Department of Health concluded that satanic ritual abuse was not only, as an earlier report ordered by the conservative government found in 1994, a myth. The Independent noted in anticipation of the report's release that a specifically commissioned government report will this week conclude that satanic ritual abuse does take place in Britain. It will say its victims have suffered actual abuse and are not suffering from false memory syndrome. One of the primary authors of the controversial report was therapist Valerie Sennison, who reportedly had personally treated 126 survivors of ritualized abuse. According to a Guardian report, according to a report in the Guardian, Sennison had said 46 of her patients claimed to have witnessed murder of children or adults during ritual abuse ceremonies that had involved up to 300 people at a time. Some 70 of the reported abuse was carried out by pedophiles and the rest by Satanists. The Independent added that 16 of the victims had also claimed that they had seen induced abortions or babies killed. Sennison's research had led her to conclude that some children are born for the purpose of abuse and are not registered on birth certificates. That claim has been voiced repeatedly by U.S. victims as well. And this is the same report that was released on the same day of the Night of the Witches. Very, very interesting. And the racists will sometimes allow some truth to come out. But even when some truth comes out, what is done? You know, they discredit the they say, hey, false memory syndrome, these people, they're not suffering from some false memory syndrome. All right, so the memories weren't false. All right, understood. Are we going to go after the people who produce these very real memories of people being harmed, killed, sacrificed, whatnot? And we're going to do anything about that? We're going to find out in chapter 1 that no, not going to do much about it. And when we do stuff about it, it's going to be suspiciously a poor effort. You know, children are going to go missing that could have been saved if, you know, Ray still just maybe put a little more effort and, you know, following through on, hey, I think this guy has a dungeon under his house where he's keeping children. Maybe we should check that out. So we're going to learn about stories like that are taking place. But in this report, something interesting caught my eyes. It says here that it said 46 of her patients claimed to have witnessed murder of children or adults during ritual abuse ceremonies that had involved up to 300 people at a time. Now that sounds like some sort of study to me. It sounds like it has a lot of participants and variables that are being probably observed. So I think it's very possible that the CIA has organized and created various, you know, satanic cults so they're able to conduct experiments. Okay, how are people gonna react? How is the mind gonna react? How does a group react to, can we mind control a group? Can we Jim Jones a group? Mind control? I think David McGowan has definitely done a interesting job with this text. Very interesting so far, and I'm definitely interested to keep it to show you all the next chapter that it's really going to be terroristic and tacky and vile. But hey, I didn't make this problem. I'm just trying to get it solved as soon as possible, ma'am and sir. But yeah, this is the system. Where's the system that we are in? This is things that are happening, have happened, will continue to happen until we can do what should have been done before we got here. So, my final notes are, this whole introduction, the Atlanta child murders popped in my mind. Folks should research that. Folks should go to the Cows archive and listen to their broadcast on the Atlanta child murders, because I'm even more suspicious of that situation. Even more suspicious of that. And making sure I didn't miss anything. And having discussed this and having been introduced to the concept of mind control, are non-white people victims of mind control? I would say yes. Are white people victims of mind control? Some of them, maybe. Is mind control one of the ways that racist man, racist woman, and racist child are maintaining their business of racism and white supremacy? I suspect yes, certainly. The information in this book, I want folks to really have access to it. So if you're just joining us, the audio book is we played the audio for the first introduction. and you can listen to it, and then you'll be able to see it and hear it, and do your own research. Do your own research. Is this happening? Is one of the ways the business of racism is maintained? I suspect yes, and we're gonna learn. This book is supposed to be about the politics of serial murder, serial killers, whatnot. How does mind control, pedophilia, serial killers all connect, all relate? Are these things and are these things integral to the system of white supremacy being continued? Does the Yurugu, racist man, racist woman, racist child, do they conduct these activities to keep the victims of racism and white supremacy in a state of confusion, in a state of fear, in a state of unwillingness to counter the system with our thought, speech, and behavior? Possibly. I do hope this was a thorough study of the text. We can study every page like I would want to, but hey, that's what should motivate folks to give it another listen and give it a read. I censored the cover of the text because this photo is allegedly a piece of law enforcement evidence taken from a crime scene of a satanic ritual abuse location, and it involves a torso that was mutilated, and it appears that there's some sort of metal wire that was tied to this person's torso in the form of a pentagram, and that's the cover of this text. And because Mr. David McGowan, I'm just gonna read the back of the book as well. People may not be able to. You may be able to find a PDF, but it may not have the back of the book on it. But you can find it online. So yeah, you find it online. So let me see. Let's see. Greetings, CE. I haven't seen you before, CE. Please subscribe if you have not already, and like and share the information if you thought it was constructive value. I do appreciate you throwing information in the chat. He says, he or she says, look up the Gotthard Base Tunnel Ceremony 2017. Will do. I am putting that in my notes right now. It's interesting. The Gotthard Base Tunnel Ceremony 2017. We'll put that in the notes for later. Thank you. They are very soft, just like the painting at Comment Pizza. I don't know if you're referring to a coded message in the film Toy Story, or what has been referred to as so-called Pizzagate, but the truth is often way more vile and scarier and malicious than fiction. Yes, Ende says, I think someone needs to research the depravity of the I'm gonna help you out, of the ages where white people were mostly amongst themselves. It's often referred to as the Dark Ages. but it's just a time where white people were in greater scholar because they were not yet introduced to constructive activities like bathing and soap. That didn't come until some non-white people introduced that to them. But Miss Ende says, I think someone needs to research the depravity of the Dark Ages. Maybe that is when TPONC lost their souls. I don't know. And if you're still here with us, you're gonna have to help me with this. TPONC. Possibly referring to the Urugus, but I'm not gonna try to guess what this acronym means. From Miss Ende, torture was entertainment in that era. I think torture is still entertainment for the racists, but I agree. In the Pale Ages, the age of the Pale Death, the bubonic plague. Yes, that era, very, very, very. Even before that, way before that, even in the era of the Romans, they were torturing each other for fun, making the slaves torture each other for fun. So yeah, it's always been fun, enjoyable in their business. Non-white people being slaughtered or them slaughtering each other, even when they were just them Vikings and berserkering on each other. It's always been fun for them. They have been having so much fun destroying and maiming that, all right, come on, white people, especially the racist white people, you guys have had your fun for thousands of years. Let's just get this justice thing on planet Earth, and you can still have fun. It just can't involve harming people. It's a very simple concept we're trying to get here on planet Earth. Oh, awesome. CE, long time viewer, first time catching it live. Awesome. Now, this is a very late hour for most. So glad someone was able to make the late night broadcast. And greetings to the folks who are observing but not participating. Greetings to you as well. Mr. Yahoo, is there anything that crossed your mind that you wanted to share?
No, I think you covered a various plethora of information, and I've been taking notes myself, and I'm still learning. No, sir, I'm good. Constructive silence.
Thank you, Mr. Yahoo. I will pick up at the mic.
Can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Can you repeat what you said at the end of it? It may have cut off for me. I just had.
I was just saying, no, you thoroughly covered everything. I have nothing to say. Constructive silence.
Understood. Thank you. Thank you. I did mention it, and I did plan to play it. So let me see if I can find it for us, and we will close on this. If I can get to that part. All right. So yeah, program to kill. The system produces this behavior. Austin Sig, I mentioned him. He should be featured in our upcoming broadcast, The Usual Suspects, where we just focus on the usual suspects. All right, so let's hear what this Usual Suspects was up to.
And rape, XXX, girls related
by a psychiatrist.
All right, hold on. But maybe before I play this, let me read from Program to Kill one more time. Program to Kill. All right. So where exactly readers were left to ponder was this alleged photographic evidence showing children with horrific injuries, and where's the evidence of ritual murders being performed? As it turns out, shockingly enough evidence is not that difficult to find, as hard as it may be to believe, especially for readers conditioned to think that all such stories are nothing but urban myths. Photographic evidence of exactly the sort described by a citizen is peddled all over the internet. But with such compelling evidence being widely circulated, many would still be tempted to discount the stories told by survivors of such abuse. So we're gonna have here, just listen to what this race soldier was up to.
At his sentencing hearing.
He searched specifically related to torture. Girl tortured and raped, girl raped after torture, girl screams in pain, torture, girl tortured and raped, XXX, anime torture, cute girl tortured, raped until death, raping and killing. He also had visited websites related to rape and torture. These included ripherup.com, screamincream.com, cruelnetwork.com, hogtied.com, and bestscore.com.
Mindy.
It's a long list, and these are the things he's researching to get off, they call. So, well, I'm gonna know. These are the things he's researching. These are things that sexually excites him. I should put it. And yeah, this is his normal behavior, or was he programmed to be this way? It could be 50-50. It could be a little bit of both. I just know it's behavior that should not be here on planet Earth, and it's behavior that we should be very much interested in putting it into. Yeah, who else are frequenting those websites he's frequenting? And where are their minds at? Because he was a race soldier, a rapist who consumed a lot of this information, and then he went out and killed, dismembered, and kept body parts of her in his house, similar to Jeffrey Dahmer. It's not as many victims. Still very incorrect. So we'll be back here. We'll be back to cover. Don't know if we'll be doing the full chapter 1 or just half of it, but we will be back to continue this study. Program to Kill. Thank you, CE and Dave, for your participation and sharing information. I will be looking into the Gotthard base tunnel ceremony, and Miss Ende, if you hear this, let me know what TPONC stands for. I could make some sophisticated guesses, but I want to be accurate with what I am understanding you to be saying. And thank you, Mr. Yawu, for sharing, especially what you shared that allowed me to just see that black males running around harming each other is an intense form of mind control, and allowing me to present and share with the audience and people who may find this broadcast, hey, a good way to understand the kind of mind control we've been given is that our minds have been replaced with a racist mind, a racist way of thinking. That is how we're allowed to be so foul and vile. That is how we're allowed, and why we're able to go out and harm each other, because we've been taught to think, speak, and act like a racist. You know, when we're talking and so-called slang and so-called whatever, and you know, that's just echoing how the racists used to be. You know, when we are just slaying each other, that's echoing how the racists used to be, you know. So they've definitely programmed us to, and trained us and mind controlled us. So don't want to keep you out here. It's very late. CRWS will be leaving, concluding shortly. But first, as is one of our traditions, I must play two items. There are two items to play before we head out.
Every single one of them. And not just the men, but the women. And the children, too.
You are alive.
No. I exist.